Hello, everyone. Welcome to this PRSSA event. My name is Kayla Holly. I'm the president. Just a few quick announcements. I'm going to drop the attendance form in the chat.
What assignment?
Where to go?
Oh, the Richie. Yeah.
You did the same one.
If you are not the speaker or my e-board, if you wouldn't mind muting yourself so you don't have any background noise during, no interruptions. This will be recorded and it will be available on our website after. If you don't have access to that, you can email us at oswegoprssa@oswego.edu. I'm gonna let my executive board introduce themselves. I will hand it over to Leah.
Hi, my name's Leah Wood. I'm a senior studying public relations with a minor in arts management, and I'm the social media director.
Leah.
So it looks like the rest of the e-board is still not here yet. So we're just going to continue as planned. I just put the attendance link in there. Feel free to fill that out if you need credit or if you just want to be recognized by your professor for showing up. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it to our speaker. He is the president of Freeman Public Relations, Bruce Maguire.
Hi all, this is one of the problems with Zoom is I can't hear your applause. So it's really very depressing. I'll be able to share a screen. Okay, so I'm going to pop up a slide presentation. Okay. All right, All right, so I do appreciate being invited. I'm been at Freeman Public Relations for a little over 40 years. That's a little bit unusual to join the company. I think I was 21 when I started right out of college, and I'm still there. I have a really good boss, which is why I'm still there. I became a partner in 1986. So 6 years after I started, I became a partner, and I became the sole owner in around 2008. So I've been here a while, and I'm going to go through a little bit. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of where I started. So it'll be a little bit about me. It'll be a little bit about you guys. So it's a little about me. It's my favorite topic. And then I'll talk a little bit about you. Not that I know you guys, but a little bit about maybe some tips on how to get started in your career. And from there, we'll talk a little bit about where PR is going, where it's been. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because it's not all that relevant, but we will talk a little bit about the direction it's going, how it's evolved, and how it may continue to evolve because it's constantly evolving, which is one of the really fun aspects about public relations. For those of you that are not part of the Oswego PRSSA, I guess that's a picture of the group from last year, and there aren't too many people that are still part of it. So I'm going to start talking about myself. Why am I talking to you? Joe Stab, who is a professor at Oswego, graduated from Utica College, where I went to school. And I think I've spoken at a couple of either PRSSAs or classes. And Joe has seen some of them, and despite that, has still invited me to come and speak. So I graduated high school in 1976. I went to high school on Long Island. For those of you at Oswego, you certainly know a lot of people from Long Island. I went to high school with people who went up there. I visited Oswego as an undergrad, as a student, and I've also been up there, though not in a while, after I graduated college. It's a little late, but a little bit of a tip if you can go back to high school, or if you're an underclassman. The four-letter word that most people in PR and communications hate, math. It's a little late to tell you to go back and pay a little attention in algebra, but it's not so much like complicated math, it's numbers. And you'll hear that my having an awareness of math has certainly helped me in my career. I will tell you that when I was in high school, I played sports, but I was better at covering sports for area newspapers. And I went off to college, wanted to be a sports writer. Utica College has journalism program, it was a small school, it was a branch of Syracuse University at the time. So my degree actually says that I graduated from Syracuse. Syracuse was really big. I was a kind of a shy guy. The idea that a public relations major was daunting. I didn't really want to do that. I thought it had to do with public speaking. They told me it was really not a big deal. It's a little different than that. So I went ahead and did take on the public relations dual major. But I had a passion for sports. And in my middle of my sophomore year, I was named the assistant sports information director, which would mean that my junior and senior years, I would be the sports information director. So I was marrying a passion with PR. And so also I like PR. It was a full scholarship position. As a relatively, kid with no money from Long Island, to get a full scholarship was pretty extraordinary. And I dove at it. It allowed me to stay close to the sports world. And that certainly helped me when it was time for me to take the passion, move forward. And when internships were starting to become available, I was able to get an internship in New York City at Burson Marsteller. Burson Marsteller was the largest PR agency in the world. Though I grew up on Long Island, for those of you that think, well, that's kind of part of New York City, I was pretty far out in the Port Jeff Station area. So that was about 60 miles. New York's pretty daunting. It's about a 2-hour train ride. I was kind of petrified, but it was definitely worth it. I worked on the NBA account, along with some other accounts, but because I had the sports PR, because I had a passion, they tapped into me to work on that. And so for me, it was dreams coming true. It went well. I was then all ready to go work for Burson Marsteller. They had a job lined up for me. I'm in my senior year of college. I hadn't even put together a resume. And all of a sudden, there was a change in plans. Burson Marsteller lost the Burger King account. So they had a hiring freeze. And so Ariel was about to graduate college. I hadn't done a resume. I had a job lined up. They were paying me during the summer. I had a $200 a week salary as an intern. I even went and worked at Burson Marsteller between spring and summer, between the fall and spring semesters. So I was kind of, I was going to be making really good money. I was going to be in the city. I was going to be working on sports and the NBA. And then boom, things changed. So I kind of had to adapt a little bit. What happened was I started sending out resumes. Back in the old days, you used to actually get jobs from print ads in the New York Times. And so I answered an ad for a small but fast-growing PR agency in New Jersey. And little did I know that my entire life would change from that. It was not just the idea that I was not going to be working in New York City, but everything was being upended. What I thought was my passion of working on sports was going to be modified. My making the big bucks working in New York City wasn't going to be the case. I was probably acting like I was a big shot because I was going to work for the biggest agency in New York. And that was like pulled out from under me. Now, I probably could have waited, potentially. I might still be waiting 40 years later, but I went off and I got this job. I do have a little bit of a slow computer. It happens when you're in your 60s, you get slow and your computer gets slow. And so I apologize for the slow in technology here, but it's coming a little behind me here. So my passion was sports, and there was a change in plans. So I had to adapt. I had to adjust. I had to be willing to do something out of my comfort zone. I went back to being this pretty nerdy looking kid. That's me. One of the reasons I actually put this picture in, not only because obviously I couldn't play sports if I looked like that, but the guy to my right, his name is Mickey Leibowitz. He is a 1980 graduate of Oswego, and he's now Dr. Mickey Leibowitz. But he's a guy, he played basketball up at Oswego, and I used to go up and visit him. And I was coerced to actually use that picture instead of some others. And here go math again. Now, why do I have math again? Well, now I joined a small company. There might have been 12 people when I started. And so I would do account work. But what I found out is a lot of people in PR don't know how to add. I mean, it was kind of amazing to me. I should have been a mathematician, or God forbid, or maybe an engineer or something, but I had a passion for writing. So by the time I was at Freeman for 2 years, 3 years, I also had taken 2 accounting classes in college. I was kind of overseeing the finances of the company. And today, there's no way I could be running a business if I didn't have some kind of background in finance. So the math mattered. So I wasn't necessarily covering sports or playing sports, but I did find out that PR is still a game. And Freeman Public Relations was a specialist in real estate PR. So far away from covering sports and the NBA, but I had to learn about office buildings and vacancy rates and talk about leases and that sort of thing. And in 1980, whereas I joined, a new hotel was opening in New York City, the Grand Hyatt on 42nd Street in Lexington. And it was built by a relatively young developer named Donald Trump. So he was a client. I do have a small recollection of at the grand opening, the ribbon cutting. I was standing up there by him and I stepped on his foot and he glared at me. So he didn't like me. Feeling is mutual. So that's enough about politics. So it wasn't just real estate. We also had some other clients, the slow travel. Now, the extent of my traveling when I took this job was in a car, mostly on the New York State Thruway, on a train to New York City from Long Island. And I did take one plane trip from Utica, New York to LaGuardia. It's the only time I've been on a plane. I assure you, I'd never been to Brazil. I had no idea how to pronounce Varig Brazilian Airlines, never mind, do some PR for it. So I was thrust into learning about a foreign country, how airlines worked, and there's a lot of discomfort, but I still had to learn a little bit of it. I was fortunate. One of the real estate clients of ours became a part owner of the New Jersey Nets. And because I had that background, we got the piece of business, and I did work on the New Jersey Nets for a little while. And I did get involved in some race car PR, but it had to do with different kind of clients, not to do with race cars. I knew nothing about it, and yet I'd gotten 2 Grand Prix races, Indy 500. So it wasn't boring stuff. One of the reasons that I got to go to these races is because Tyco Toys became my client. It was in the late 80s. Our agency got this Tyco Toys. I looked 12, I had bangs. They said, let the kid work in the account. And that was the biggest break I ever had. Tyco at the time made flat car sets and train sets and things that really aren't made anymore. They also made a lot of radio control cars, but they were a pretty fast growing company. They're about $60 million a year when they hired us. But it gave us an opportunity to become somebody in the toy industry. And so we were doing bears like, Gund, and we started working on other different brands. We got a reputation as being good in the toy world. In 1996, Tyco Toys got bought by Mattel, and Mattel
Can you turn that off?
And Mattel said that I should, not that I should, Mattel said fly up to East Aurora, New York, which is outside Buffalo, and you're going to meet your new clients at Fisher-Price. So I went from Tyco Toys, which was not a brand that many people knew, and while it was growing, it went public and it did well. All of a sudden, I was working on one of the great toy brands, and I was just going to Fisher-Price for me was like, oh my God, I'm at the mecca of toys. And meanwhile, I also got to work on Mattel product, and Mattel has landed the airport in Los Angeles, and you see this huge tower that says, you know, Mattel, and Mattel is Barbie and Hot Wheels and Monster High, and, you know, a ton of other different toys. So all of a sudden, I was kind of the toy guy, and sports were no longer my passion, but toys became my passion. And then I kind of hit the grand slam. Many people can have an entire career in PR without being associated with something like this. And I was very fortunate. This came a little bit before most of you were in the toy world, playing with toys. But Tickle Me Elmo became a phenomenon in 1996, which led to Tyco being bought by Mattel. And a lot of its success was credited to PR. We had a lot of famous media people play with the toy. Among them, early on around Toy Fair, which is a big trade show, just in February, well before Christmas, Al Roker from the Today Show. He was a chunky guy at the time. He was about 20 years outside of where he graduated from college, which for those of you who are not at Oswego, he is an Oswego graduate. He loved it, and he kind of laughed along with Elmo. And then we did this big event with Rosie O'Donnell, and it turned out to be a huge hit. We got the public relations PR Week marketing campaign of the year award, a little bit of like toy industry Oscars. The Wall Street Journal did a story about the secret marketing people behind the phenomenal hit, and it kind of opened us up to an array in the toy world where all of a sudden everybody in the toy world knew who Freeman PR was. And as most bosses do, when it's a success, I went in front of the parade and took all the credit. When it's failure, I always blame somebody else. I'm just kidding, I don't really do that. Now, some of these brands you guys certainly will recognize. They're brands that you guys grew up with. And so as a dad, I have 3 sons in their 20s. I became a little bit of a popular dad and a popular uncle. I would be at events, and Elmo, the guy, the voice of Elmo, Kevin Clash, would be there, and he would call my kids, and Steve from Blue's Clues. I have a son named Patrick, and Patrick from SpongeBob, Patrick Starfish, he called my son. He goes, "Hey, Patrick, this is Patrick Starfish." And, I get paid for this. I actually got paid, and it was heady times. We were the it PR firm in the toy world, and I guess you're going to pick an industry to kind of achieve a little bit of success and notoriety, and so that when you go to work and you're writing press releases and doing that sort of thing, you can still have fun. Today, my job is a little more mundane. We've had as many as 25 people working for us. Mattel, when they're our client, give you a little sense of the business part of agency business. Tyco Toys in 1980 hired us at $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year. By the time we were handling Mattel and many of their brands, not all of them, we were making $1 million a year. That growth put me from being the kid that was working on Tyco to the guy in the corner office as the CEO. Certainly helped my kids play with a lot of toys, and I've been able to hold on to that job, even though business has not always been great. In 2009, the economy was in pretty bad shape. Mattel consolidated a lot of their PR agency work. They chose a global company, and as a small company in northern New Jersey, we didn't make the finalist list, and so we're out. That's a huge account to lose. Second biggest account in the agency at the time was Jeep, the brand Jeep. We don't represent the cars, we represent the brand. So anybody who made Jeep toys or Jeep clothing or ramps or sweatshirts or whatever, they paid for licensing. And a lot of those toy brands I showed you earlier, they were licensing. So we became kind of experts in that world, but we lost Jeep as well. So we lost over a 2-year period, 83% of our billings. And the fact that I was able to stay in business during that time period is among the most proud moments of my industry. It's, Elmo, by the way, is not number one. Jobs that have been created and launched. There are some people that started at Freeman PR that have really great jobs around the country, senior level jobs at huge agencies and at companies. And that's what I'm most proud about. And one of the things that I do today is I kind of try to understand how a client thinks. And I think what my staff appreciates most is that I try and hire good people and let them do their job. And one of the things I've learned as I got older is what I don't know. And what I don't know is really a great opportunity for you guys, because your generation knows a lot of what I don't know. And the only way that my industry is going to succeed, companies like mine, are if you guys bring it. So fortunately, I'll stop talking about myself for the most part, because I want to tell you, you're entering the world of PR or communications or any kind of affiliated area into advertising and digital marketing and all that. So who's there already? Well, boomers, right? That's me. But we know that you think boomers are goofballs, and we are. We tell bad jokes. The good news is you're right. You really don't have to care about us. We're not that important. We're basically cooked. You know things that we can't learn. But there are millennials. For those who don't know, that's Professor Stab again. He's a millennial. So they're between you and all the riches that you want to get. So what do you do about millennials? I'm not going to put a red line through them, because actually you need to make peace with them. Millennials are the guys that are teaching you. They're the ones that are going to hire you. They're the ones that are going to teach you some of the tricks of the trade, because it's one thing to know social media. It's another thing to know how to monetize social media. It's one thing to understand how to get how a shared video, a viral video is so important. But it's another thing to understand how that's important for somebody that's willing to pay a lot of money to make that happen. And it's the millennials who are going to teach you that. They're also the ones that are going to hire you. They're the ones that are going to give you raises. They're the ones who are going to give you promotions. So be kind to millennials. So you guys are Gen Z, the Zoomer generation. Compared to millennials, I don't have to tell you about you. You know you guys a lot better than me, but compared to millennials, and definitely compared to boomers, you guys are kinder and gentler. You're much more in tune with the world. There are things that we as boomers like try to understand. There are things that millennials have done a little bit better of learning. You guys already know it. The concept of diversity or equal rights or the equality between men and women, you guys are like, how is that even a discussion? I mean, there's nothing to discuss here. That's the way it is. And that's a big advantage that you guys have. And again, for those out of town, I think these are some of the members of the Oswego PRSSA. And just so you guys know, you put your pictures up on LinkedIn, you can get your pictures up on a slide presentation. So you're eventually going to graduate college and you're going to want to get a job. And probably the only part of this presentation you care about is, okay, tell me how I get a job. Now, I'm going to talk generally, but a lot of it's going to be through the eyes of a boutique PR agency. And I'll tell you what kind of we're looking for. Now, the first entree that you're going to give to us, that you're introducing yourself to us, is a cover letter and a resume. We understand the resume, by and large, is going to be a prefab, already made product that you guys have organized. Cover letter is not going to be. It shouldn't be. Cover letter shouldn't look like another cover letter. I wanted to say like Dear John, or it looked like you just replaced somebody else's name. What I'd like to see, what people who are hiring want to see, is a little bit of research into us. My agency is relatively boring. You know, we don't have that interesting of a past. We're relatively small. Bigger companies, companies that you're going to be applying to that probably have a much stronger digital component than we have. We have to farm out a lot of that. Frankly, we'd love to be able to hire somebody right out of college that knew how to monetize the digital aspects of it, but we haven't been able to find that so much. It's been a little bit of a surprise to us. But do your research, and in your cover letter, let us know. If we have a job opening, we're getting a bunch of letters and resumes. Oftentimes a letter may mean more than the resume. The next part of this, I don't have it memorized, I'm sorry, and it's a little slow. How it looks matters. Up until about 2000, 2005, all resumes looked the same. Every book about doing resumes said to do it a different way. I've been amazed at how cool resumes are today. How you guys have been able to make them come to life. There's a visualization to it because it matters how it looks, and you guys make it good. But what you sometimes do, less on the resume because you double check that, triple check that, is on your cover letter, you don't always spell check it. So spell check it again. I have literally gotten a nice resume from somebody, and there were, typos or real huge grammatical mistakes in the cover letter. And I've actually reached out to them and said, just so you know, it's kind of interesting what you have here, but these are things you're going to want to do. Maybe they thought it was obnoxious. I was just trying to be helpful. But if I'm in your shoes, really double check everything you send out. We often look for reasons why not to hire somebody. You have to show me all the reasons I should, but if you show me a weakness, I'm going to see it. Little mistakes are a little annoying. Once you're part of the team, mistakes happen. We understand that. But when we're going to be picking you out of 15 applicants, the one who's made mistakes are going to go to the bottom of the pile. That's just the way it is. So spell check. Now, when we're also looking for in the actual resume itself, because I know that's important to you, of course, internships matter. We understand that everybody can get internships. In looking at some of the LinkedIn profiles, I saw that there are some nice internships you had. I saw one in Ireland, and that you guys are doing those things. Get internships. There was a time in which I refused to hire an intern if we couldn't necessarily afford them, because I didn't want to, I thought it was wrong to pay somebody to work for us and they wouldn't get paid. There was a period of time in which people pleaded with me. Young people said, look, I don't need the money. I live with my mom and dad. It's the summer. They feed me. I need something for my resume. And for maybe one summer, I kind of said, okay, but I can't do that. And so we do pay our interns, but getting experience is crucial. And the internship shouldn't be, and as you see on TV or movies or whatever, it shouldn't be getting coffee or that kind of thing. It should be, pretty involved, pretty having to do with exactly what you're trying to do in the business world. We're going to want to know about the pertinent classwork that you do. We're going to want to know some of the classwork is not going to be even just the communications classwork. I am a huge advocate of going outside of the communications discipline, and not even just basic math or accounting. Marketing classes, public relations, communications, they're often part of the marketing team. PR and promotions are part of the P in the marketing tool belt. Marketing people are often controlling our budgets. Budgets are crucial because that's how we get paid. That's how agencies get money and how we can pay people. So I think it's important that you recognize that. And I'm a little slow here. So active on campus, being volunteers for the PRSSA is really good. Doing stuff for your fraternity or sorority is also good. It's better to do it for related organizations. You want to try and do more than just say, this was a social organization that I was in charge of the PR for. It's better than not having it, but make sure you have more than just that on your resume. It's pretty crucial. And as I said about the classwork, tell us about it. If you've done computer work, if you've done some kind of digital programs, if you've done volunteer work as part of a class, or you did a program where you helped out a retailer or a small business in Oswego or in Dallas or wherever you may be, and you're tuning into this, try and put it on there. And again, make the resume look good, because there's something we're looking at. It's got to stand out. And then last, I have on here certifications. If maybe there's a Google Analytics, or you've done some kind of social media programs, or there's some kind of certifications you do through school, let us know that, because oftentimes you can be better educated in these areas than we are, and they're crucial. So we need to hire you guys. So you're chosen. You're one of the 4 or 5 people, 2 or 3, 1 that are chosen to do the interview. It used to be always in person. There's some bigger agencies, in particular bigger companies, you can work in a department, will probably do a phone first. And today, and maybe through most of 2021, it's going to be Zoom or Skype or Google Meetups or something. But it's all basically the same. What you want to do is you want to show passion for the job. You want to show you're interested in it. You also don't want to act like you're a cheerleader and going overboard, but you want to have enthusiasm and don't feel like you're bored. You want to demonstrate you have a knowledge of the company. And again, whether it's a private company you're going to work internally at, whether it's a digital marketing company, a public relations agency, an ad agency, know what they work on, know what their strengths are. Go through their website many times, get to know some of their clients, get to see some of their case studies, so you understand what they do. And so when you're in the interview process, remember, part of the interview process is they're trying to get to know you, but you want to get to know them as well. It's a little bit of a marriage. It feels as though you're a little more desperate to get married, but they want to hire somebody who's good. But for us to make the investment in a new employee, we want to make sure that they're going to be happy. So I'm expecting you to ask me some questions. I want you to ask me some questions. And if you know something about my company, you're more apt to ask me questions about it. This isn't the time that you ask me whether you can take 3 weeks vacation the first year, or whether, that do we give Jewish holidays off for the Friday after Thanksgiving or Christmas week off. Those aren't the questions. You'll have that opportunity at the next stage. But you can want to ask about, do we have interaction? Do the employees like to do things together? Young people like to work with other young people. There's no question in my mind that 23-year-olds at my agency don't want to go out, hang out with me at a bar. They don't want to do it. So they want to be able to have other people there. Find out a little bit about it. Find out how they interact. Ask if you can talk to some of the employees. The more you show that you're of value to this agency, the more value you have to the agency or to that corporation or to that company. And the basics matter. Smile, shake hands, don't look bored. Public relations, there's a optics matter. Look, there's no question that king or queen is definitely the substance. But how things look, remember, we're in the how it looks business. We're trying to persuade people. We're in a persuasion business. All of marketing is a persuasion business. So part of what you want to do is you want to persuade. So you want to have your best foot forward. Not every position in the PR world, communications world, is your fronting clients. Some of it is your kind of more back office. You're doing some computer stuff. You're really just on a computer doing social media. But having some personal skills and moving forward are pretty crucial for advancing up the ladder, because ultimately getting along with people, understanding what they need, asking questions, not just talking about yourself, those are the keys to succeeding and moving ahead. So next, and again, I'm going to have to guess what's next. You got the job. Congratulations. Yeah, balloons and all of that. That's not enough. You have to treat your job like it's even more than just your job. If you want to keep the job and you want to grow in the job, you need to understand it. I mentioned earlier taking some marketing classwork would help. I can almost assure you that most of you will be somehow related to the marketing department or the marketing department. If you're working for an agency, the marketing department inside, you may report to the PR department inside, but they report to marketing. Understand how marketing people think. Today, most marketing people are MBAs. So you're going to need to understand that they're looking at it from that perspective. This is the biggest problem we have with some of our starting people. If we ever have an issue with the entry-level roles, some people look at it as a job. They think it's the same as they had an internship, and the internship they worked from 9 to 1 and then they took off, or they had summer jobs and they clocked in, they clocked out. If you want to succeed in this world, you can't look at it as a job. I mean, some places I guess you can, but you want to look at it as a career. On the other hand, you want to work at a company, and I like to think of Freeman PR as being that, where there's a whole life experience. There's a balance between life and business. And I would say life is more important than business. Today, you're connected to a computer, you're tethered to something through Bluetooth 24/7. We recognize that you don't always have to be in the office for some things. This whole COVID has taught us that being in the office is a little bit overrated anyway. We're shocked at how productive, we meaning my senior team leaders, how productive people have been, particularly young people. For you guys, it was easy, and this is more training for you. You're taking classes remotely, doing a lot of things remotely. So I think that there's an ability for you to understand that work is not just between the hours of 9 to 5, and that you need to make a little bit of investment into it. It ultimately pays off. Then it's not just a job. I mean, it's a career. You're going to want to, you're in a business, you're going to want to follow influence. You're going to want to follow the people in the PR industry or in the digital marketing, or both. You want to follow the advertising people. Obviously, there's a zillion areas where you can follow these people where they're giving their opinions and telling you guys about how they do things. And it's a lost art, but read. Take a look at the Wall Street Journal once in a while. Read the marketing columns, the New York Times. Check out some magazines. BuzzFeed isn't everything. Your Twitter feed does not give you all the news that you need. Sometimes go beyond those and get to know beyond your comfort zone. And then this is my own pet peeve, but I've heard it from others, is one thing not to ever do when you write a cover note, or if you call a PR agency, don't ever, ever, ever say, I'm a people person. I don't get it. If you're not a people person, then why you want to be in this business? And if you're a people person, that may be more like a customer service kind of thing. PR isn't actually just the person greeting you at the front desk of the resort. There's a business aspect to this. There's strategy and there's involvement. And yeah, you have to be pleasant to people, but we're never going to hire somebody because they're a people person. So that's just my my little view here. So I've purposely left the future to the shortest point because I don't really know what it is. I mean, I can tell you a little bit. It's certainly evolved. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the past because that would basically put you guys to sleep. I will tell you this. Every year, it seems, everything has changed. For those of you that are seniors, from what you were being taught, some of the platforms, some of the ways of doing things when you were freshmen have changed. It's changing constantly. And here's the paradox. Nothing has changed. There are some things that we do today, that you're doing today and that you're going to be doing in 10 years from now, I was doing 40 years ago. So I'll go through some of them. I'll go through some of the ways that it's been a static. There's been things that really hasn't changed. Influencers, it's a buzzword. I'll probably say it a couple more times before I'm done. Influence is so important. Everything in marketing, you read about reaching influencers. There've always been influencers. back long before me, the talk show people were, Johnny Carson and stuff, they were influencers. For me, the mainstream media were influencers. They've always been there. We called them opinion leaders. We didn't use the word influencers. We still tell stories. We still want to work in our product, our service, our business. We want there to be something compelling so that the teller of the stories, the intermediary, the media person, or the creative work that we put together, tells a story so that the ultimate consumer of that, the person who absorbs it, wants to do something with that information. We have to sell it in some kind of way. We're selling. We promote products. Over the years, 40 years ago, we would have special events. They're not called special events now, they're called activations. But they're still putting up products in front of people and giving people an opportunity to try product out. There used to be, we'd send product to the TV shows and they put it on for free. Now you have to pay for that. So there's some, evolving of it. But ultimately, whatever we're doing then, now, and the future, is to try and elicit some type of action. Now, that action has changed a little bit over the years, but it's always for them to do something. We're trying to persuade somebody to do something. So the changes, the biggest change, and there are two huge changes. The biggest change is the delivery methods. We're still packaging the same kind of concepts, but how they're being packaged is different. In the beginning, it was just, and we didn't call it mainstream media, but it was mainstream media. That's who we talked to. We talked to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the USA Today. We spoke to the evening news programs, the Today Show, Good Morning America. That was all important. Then it developed a little bit into the mid and late 80s. All of a sudden, cable TV started to have its own programming, which at your age, you're looking at this saying, what are you talking about? Like, this has been there forever. No, it hasn't been. It's evolved over the years. Then it became online versions of mainstream media. Long before this whole digital revolution, where all of a sudden it's everywhere. And that makes your job easier in some ways and harder in some ways. We used to be so dependent upon getting something in the Wall Street Journal, and it wasn't easy. The person, the guy who was writing the byline that we would go after, carried so much influence. Now major influencers do, but they were just different kind of influencers. Another big changes, and I alluded to this earlier, is the illicit, we're trying to elicit an action. The rapid response. We used to try and get something would be in a magazine. It used to be in Parents Magazine, and the mom would look at it and she'd tear out and she'd put it in a little folder, and on Black Friday, she'd go buy that toy. Today, of course, the response is immediate. They're going to click in to buy it. We want them to share what we're posting. We want them to share it so that their friends see it, so that everybody that sees what we have shares to somebody else, because that's saving us money, ultimately, us meaning the marketer. We want them to post. We want them to engage with us. These are all the opportunities that we have that weren't around when I was starting out. Now, today in the future, clearly there's an information overload. It's limitless. It's exhausting. It's changing. Last year, this thing Quibi came out, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and it was a way to deliver content of short films and TV shows via mobile devices. They went belly up today. We already know what happened to Vine and what happened to MySpace and some of that. You have to be kind of underground to not be hearing the term fake news, but it's not just fake news. Unfortunately, the PR world gets some of the blame for what is fake news, but there is misinformation. I've been accused, okay, you're in the PR field, you guys lie. We don't tell lies. Good PR agencies don't tell lies. Good PR people might tell select truths. I know I'm splitting hairs there, but we do not lie. And lying today has become much more acceptable. I kind of have a little bit of a hard time with that, but at my agency, if you work in my agency, you don't lie. You don't have to tell the whole truth. We're not paid to tell the entire truth, but we are paid to at least tell the truth, even if it's not part of it. I kind of skipped quickly there. It's the big blur. There's just so much things speed. You may have heard the name Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol was an artist, and he said everybody gets 15 minutes of fame. My feeling is today everyone gets 15 seconds of fame. There was a time where advertising and PR were completely separate. It was pretty clear. And the way it was is that traditionally advertising at the bulk of the budgets, and PR, we were a little tail of the dog. And we were treated that way. Advertising got the seat at the big table, and we were at the little table with the little kids. But what has happened in the evolution of digital and the importance of influencers is that we're now in a position where we're equal to advertising. PR has become so much more crucial than it used to be. There's a jump ball in digital. A lot of you are digital focused, and some of you will be a little more digital focused in the advertising view. Some of them are going to be from the PR view. There was a time in which advertising was paid and PR was earned, meaning we worked for it to get the coverage. Advertising paid for it. There's a big blur there as well. Currently, we have budgets to pay influencers. We have budgets to sponsor posts and to sponsor products appearing on television programs. So what's going to happen with the future? The future of PR is that PR is, we're more important than ever. There's never been a better time to be in the PR business. Budgets are booming. I got to tell you, in this entire COVID time, we have not lost one client. It was petrifying in the beginning, but we got through it. Ad budgets have been slashed. PR budgets have gone up. The concept of dealing with influencers is not an advertising part. They like to do more of it. They're trying to do more of it, but the margins aren't really there for them. There's a whole new sub business now of agents for the influencers, and they're trying to package deals, try and become bigger vehicles so that they're getting ad kind of budgets, but the ad agencies haven't figured out necessarily how to make money that way. We had a big advantage because advertising always spoke to consumers. PR had a two-way conversation with consumers. That's what a lot of today's social media, the interaction, the delivery methods, many of them are two-way, which is one of the reasons that PR is so crucial now, particularly compared to the past. And without question, everyone is an influencer. We have a client, a toy company that has something called Stickbot. And what Stickbot was, it was these bendable little figures, and it came with a green screen and encouraged kids to make videos. And the marketing people, and it was ingenious, they came up with the idea that we may have kids make videos and post their videos. So in essence, those kids that were making these videos to show off what they were able to do with these toys, they became the advertising effort. We weren't paying them. They were just influencing. And so everybody that buys your product has access. They have a megaphone, and they use it. The future of PR is also going to be filled with challenges. Content delivery is evolving constantly. There are dying platforms, as I mentioned, Vine and others are under rocks. If I listen to the 22-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, the 24-year-olds of the world, they don't know why Facebook exists, and it might not. It will evolve. Snapchat became something. It's now evolving. They want to try and make it a little bit more like Instagram. Does the world need two Instagrams? I don't know. Instagram came out, wanted to be more like Snapchat, and now Snapchat wants to be like Instagram. Obviously TikTok is a dominant area that's driving a lot. You can't talk right now, and if you guys haven't done a case study yet on the cranberry, the orange ocean spray, it's phenomenal what happened with TikTok. That's an incredible example of the power of social media and sharing. One little side note on that, this guy, Stuart Elliott, who covered advertising at the New York Times, he and I follow each other on Twitter. And he put this post and said, if they got any publicity, has Ocean Spray got any publicity on this? And I wrote him, I said, Stuart, that is the publicity. That is by far the most valuable part of this. And yet this is a guy who is in the media who still thinks being in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times is more important than having a TikTok video that's been shared 16 trillion times. A challenge is filtering through the noise. Challenge is trying to get done quickly so we have 15 minutes left over. And the other side of having a budget and being able to spend money when you have all these places to spend it is to spend it wisely. Because once you start misspending money, you lose your value and you lose the right to spend that money. I also want to remind you a little bit that the past matters. In the toy world, I'm certainly familiar that classics don't die. I mentioned Barbie and Hot Wheels and Matchbox. They've been around for decades. Remember that people still read. They may be reading on their phones, but they're still reading. Things that are in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal get published in many places. They get shared a lot. So don't ignore, don't fall to the trap that only the new stuff matters. My agency is still really, really connected to a lot of traditional, and it helps us very much. People still watch TV. We have a client, he was a guy in the toy world. He came to us, he had a COVID-related product, something so that you didn't spread it. And we got on the Today Show. So I was on the Today Show. He went from being number 6,000 in handheld tools on Amazon to number 1, and he was sold out. And it was because he was on the Today Show. Then that video that was on the Today Show was shared by a lot of consumers. It went up on all their promotional material, all of their boosts, and on their website. So old stuff still matters. Okay, I don't want you guys to think it really doesn't. And activations, they were called special events. They still work. Oftentimes in one collective. With packaging, with promotions, with publicity, with advertising, and certainly with social media related activations. The future of PR, and I'm sorry to do this to you, but the 4-letter word math does have, it's really just numbers, but it does come into play. Why? Because the marketers have MBAs. They look at spreadsheets all day long. They're looking at Excel charts while we're looking at creative ideas of how to get some attention. They want to look at numbers. They want to know the data. You have to interpret the data. Yes, computers will spit out a lot of this stuff, but you need to understand them. So if it's not too late, take a math class. If you need to take it separately, learn it a little bit. Budgets are crucial. Yeah, we all have calculators. We all have, the spreadsheets. Excel will add it up for you. But sometimes in a meeting, they don't want to wait for you to take it down a piece of paper and add together some numbers. They want to know that you can ballpark that 68 and 54, what that comes out to pretty quickly. And they don't want to see you put it down. Try and learn those things. I know I'm a little late telling a 22-year-old to pay attention in 5th grade, but it does matter. And then finally, where the future of PR is going is it's certainly not up to this boomer. It's for you guys to decide. It's definitely up to you guys, and to stick with the theme of toys. That's all, folks. So I'm done.
Thank you so much. That was a lot of great information. I know I have a ton of questions. We have 7 minutes left. So if anybody does have specific questions that they would like to ask, feel free. Unmute yourself. Bruce, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. And in fact, because I went in overtime, I'd be happy to answer questions via email if somebody wants to have a conversation. If there's something that I'll certainly do that. Again, I have 3 kids in their 20s. Young people have, they've helped me in my career. So I'd be happy to spend time. I am in LinkedIn, but feel free to send me emails, and I will answer them or have conversations. So see, I just used up another minute.
That's okay. If you don't mind sharing, would you just mind dropping your email in the chat box? Because not everybody here is on our email list, so they wouldn't necessarily get that information from us.
Okay.
I'll open up the floor. If anybody has questions, just unmute yourself, or I know that they come in through the chat a little bit. So I guess I'll read this one from the chat first. Meredith asks, is there anything you learned during the downturn of 2009 that you are grateful for having experienced today?
That's a great question. the New York Times magazine, Sunday magazine, had a cover story maybe about 10 years ago, and it said, "What if the secret to success was failure?" And I think that facing adversity and getting through adversity in of itself is great. Fear is a difficult thing to come over. I talked about having to go into New York City for Burson Marsteller. Once I did it, it was easy. Diving into something is always scary. So if my company had this really pretty nice little upward growth, and then we hit a wall, salaries went way down. I made a quarter of what I had been making. Other staff people took a big cut. Some of the long-term employees I had to let go. It was a very difficult time. So what did I learn? I learned to get through it. And I've learned since then, when there are ups and downs in my business, there are ups and downs in the business. The sun's still going to come out. My life, my job's important. My career is important. It's not my life. I mean, it's my business. And I'm very much aware that I have mouths to feed. I had, college tuitions to help pay for. And I have employees who have lives. And so, that matters to me. But there's always something else. Another door will open. So I think that don't give up. Keep doing what you do. And it seemed as though the moments of the most despair, something happened positive. It was pretty phenomenal. There's an expression, when you're going through hell, keep going. And I thought about it a lot since 2009.
Thank you. I actually have a question kind of on the opposite end of that. How did you handle the sudden boom in business as a small firm? After the Tickle Me Elmo blew up and all these toy companies were coming to you, how did you handle that as a business?
Again, another good question. I look back at it, and there was probably a little more arrogance than I would have liked if I did it all over again. I think I'd have a little more humility, because it was really a pretty special time, but it was heady time. And we were able to say no to some business. And it's a little bit like when you're looking for a job and you get multiple offers. You get to be able to say what's really best for us. So we were able to choose, but we also had to turn down some business, because as we got bigger clients, the big guys said no. I mean, I remember Fisher Price said we couldn't work on Playmobil. We do Playmobil now, but we don't do Fisher Price. So we had to hire people, but we had bigger budgets, so we could hire some experienced people. We have almost always grown from entry-level positions. We have had people start at entry level who have gone to be senior VPs at my agency and EVPs elsewhere. I mean, I was at entry level position, and I own the place now. So we were able to hire more people. We were able to make more people bosses. One of the difficult things in a small agency is giving people the responsibility, having multiple teams and multiple people to work for them. Growing gave us the opportunity to do that, and that was the best aspect of it. We had separate teams, and then the challenge is mixing them up a little bit, try and make sure that the younger people are getting a more rounded experience, so they're learning from different bosses, from different people. I have this one woman who works for me, and I hope she's not listening in. She's extraordinarily talented. She has launched some incredible careers, but she's very hard to work for. And so there are people who left angry who right now owe their career to her. So there's kind of a balance, and she's been with me 28 years. I had somebody else who retired recently who's with me 31.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions that they would like to ask?
It's a simple question, but what are some books or podcasts you would recommend that are beneficial?
Why would you ask me such a tough question? Podcasts. All right, Isabella, you have to sign off. You answer a question. You ask a question I can't really answer. Podcasts are like my new frontier that I have to find more about. But I know that Daniel Edelman has a blog that he does, and I don't know if he does a podcast because I haven't really gone into podcasts as much as I'd like to, and that is one of the new areas of growth. And I have challenged some of the young people in my agency to try and see the opportunities we have from a PR end there. There's another agency in New York called Peppercom. They have a great blog. I would kind of search around for it. It's one of those things, do as I say, not necessarily as I do. I mean, I'm frankly looking at that exit sign flashing more than I am in your position, like trying to get moving. And I really don't have the answer at the top of my head, but if you email me, I'll provide you some answers.
Yes, thank you so much.
I got one real quick. Hey, Bruce, my name is John. I'm the vice president of PRSSA. I joined a little bit late. I really enjoyed your talk, and I just had a quick question for you. What would you say to like a young person who is a little intimidated by going into the field? I'm a senior, so I'm graduating in the spring. What do you think about a young person who's intimidated by like working online more than likely for like the foreseeable future?
When you say working online, you mean working remotely?
Correct. Yeah, like from home.
Okay. Well, there's almost a paradox in there in that if you're a little intimidated, sometimes doing it in person is actually a little more difficult than doing it remotely. I do know that when I'm in a room with a whole bunch of people, I can sometimes get intimidated. I remember I had a meeting for the Jeep brand out at Chrysler's big office out in Detroit. And I was petrified. I had 30 years experience and I was sweating and I was like, oh my God. But here I'm looking at a little dot on the top of my computer screen. And, I don't even have everyone's picture. I just see who's talking. But it's a little easier. It's almost like a one-on-one. I think that's one of the secrets that they've given to people when you're talking to a large audience. Pick out one person and talk to them. Ideally, actually pick out one person in a couple of different parts of the room so you're moving your head around and talking to different people. But it's a little bit where I said that going to New York City, how to dive in. I was very shy. It's hard. People are shocked when I tell them I was a shy guy, but I was very shy. I was easily intimidated. The idea that I go work in New York City with these fast-paced, is just beyond me. But you face fears by diving in. And I think once you do it and you have those successes, there's another cliche, and I'm a boomer, so I talk in cliches a lot, sorry. But how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So you're not starting out and expected to be running the show right away. You guys want to, I know that. You guys want the guy's salary in the corner office, but you also want to work 4 hours a day and then be able to watch Netflix for another 6 hours. So you're going to have to make some accommodations for this, but you're not expected to be the boss right away. And it's okay to have a little bit of fear, but face it down. And I would also say, make sure you have a relationship with your supervisor or with somebody, a friend or whomever, that you can talk this stuff through. It would be great if you had a supervisor or a colleague at work where you can say, man, I don't know why I'm so nervous doing this, or what do I say to this person when I get them on camera? So ask questions. I love it when people ask me questions because I know that they're thinking and they care. Pet peeve of mine is when they do something wrong and then they said, well, they didn't want to ask, they didn't want to sound stupid. I don't buy that. I think you ask questions. I don't know if it answered the question, John, but.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Does anybody else have any more questions? You can just unmute yourself and ask it yourself if you'd like. If not, I certainly have more questions. Nope.
I have a question.
Okay.
What advice do you have for somebody who is nearly 60 and is just finishing college after years of raising a family? What advice do you have for me as I re-enter the workforce?
bravo. It's not advice, but I think it's remarkable. You know, I talked earlier about passion, having passions. What are your passions? Well, you have something that most 22-year-olds don't have, which is experiences. And you know, you talk to somebody, say you wanted something in the world of toy PR or something, and I don't know where you're located, but you know, so Fisher Price is up in East Aurora. You wanted to get into the toy world. You raise kids, you understand the world of toys. You raise kids, you understand the world of right now education, and you know, this whole idea of how do you get through, make this bridge from kids who went to school in buildings to the fact that you're going to school, you know, remotely, which is kind of incredible. You're just finishing. So I think, don't question, I'm not gonna lie to you, there are challenges. You know, there, without question, there are challenges. You're going to need to recognize and face that and acknowledge, look, I know I'm not the normal candidate coming in here. I don't know what other jobs you've had over the years, if any, but I'm sure you've, besides raising a family, which is, you know, I'm one of 9 kids. If I ever said to my mom that she never worked, if my father didn't whack me across the head, but, you know, so how much of it is necessarily pertinent to this? But being open and honest and being willing to start somewhere lower, because here's your advantage. You're going to understand things a lot quicker. Maybe not some of the technical parts about it, but your life experience is going to mean you're going to absorb some of these other information more quickly. So to show a willingness, look, don't pay me a whole lot of money to start. What I want to do is I want to get my foot in the door. I want to learn this. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to watch these young kids to see what they're doing so I can pick up on what they're doing, and say, I'm not going to be that huge investment that you may, you know, be needing to make people. And then you also want to make sure that they know that this, you're not a 1 year and go, 2 year and go person, because one of the frustrations in a business is we hire somebody, we have them for a year or two, and then they take off. That's common in my business. We're almost like a graduate school. We're not in New York City. If I joined my company now, I don't know, I certainly wouldn't last 40 years. I'd be over 100. But the that was a dad joke. But there are more fascinating things out there. But if you came in and said, look, I'm working for 10 years. I have 10 years ahead of me. This is what I want to do. I'm fascinated by this. I've had a lot of time to think about what I want to do. Be honest with them. Be straight. Use your strength, which is you're fearless. The fact that you did this, you went back to school, demonstrates a fearlessness that is very appealing. So, as in anything else, play off your strengths. We're marketers. You're marketing yourself. So look at it from that viewpoint.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
I am also a student that came back to school. I'll be 42 in a couple of weeks. I've raised 4 kids. I have one that's in college now. And my question is going off of what Melanie said. How do we put that real life experience onto our cover letter or onto our resume to even get the opportunity to interview with the company?
I would again stress, be straightforward and honest about it, and tell that story. It's how we tell stories. So you turn what you may perceive to be a negative into a positive, that you're bringing something to the table that others don't. And despite the fact that there are people in this call that are 20, 21, 22, 23, I'll say anyway that you have a lot more maturity than they have. They think they know everything that they don't know yet. And we know that, and they will eventually know that, but you know that. So you know, you've already been through some of these. You've been through hell already, and you got through it. You've been through life's learning lessons. Real life experience becomes more valuable the more you have it. It's a little bit like when I was younger, I always thought that experience was so overrated. now that I'm experienced, I think it's got a lot of value. So I think that you have a decision-making process that some people starting out don't have. You probably have loyalty that they may not have. I mean, there's this generation of millennials, and it's probably going to continue a little bit with Z-Gen, bounce around a lot. There was a time where you never switched jobs less than 5 years. Now 5 months is acceptable to switch jobs. So companies are trying to hire somebody who's going to, kind of plant and stay put. It'll be interesting in this world of remote working, where we live is not quite as important. And so there may be a swift change in positions. Right now, we're kind of in a sort of recessionary kind of time frame. Not a lot of businesses are hiring, expanding. There's still a lot of question marks. It's a little more difficult, but I think eventually there might be a lot of movement between companies. From your viewpoint, with the experience of 4 kids, ranging from, I guess, fairly young into college, and yourself, you demonstrate what you bring to the table that the others that you're going against don't have. That's what we do for a living. That's what marketing people do for a living. We're trying to put, the term sometimes is spin, but it's not necessarily, this is a situation where you're trying to put a false impression on something. You have some positive things to bring to the table. Be proud of that. Talk about what you have. You're going to be an asset to a company. They just need to know what you bring to them that they may not have, or that others that are applying for that same position can't bring. And again, have a willingness to swallow a little bit of pride and say, okay, I'm going to start a less position than maybe I'm worth, but I'm going to prove that I can work my way up.
Thank you.
I hope that helped a little bit.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Does anybody have, I know that we're like 12 minutes over, but I love these conversations. And thank you so much, Bruce, for coming and spending your evening with us. Okay,
you're welcome. And again, feel free. I saw there was one question about what brands that I've been impressed by. And, again, it's kind of hard to be specific. I gave it some thought. Undoubtedly, Ocean Spray has been, not only am I impressed, they stepped into it. A lot of this, you step into, it's a lot of luck involved in success stories. But to be able to capitalize upon it and to add fuel to it. And I think that the combination in the Ocean Spray in particular, where the rock guy, Nick Fleetwood, that he saw that he could benefit from it. So a lot of people are benefiting from this. And I just saw another one today, a little spoof. There were a lot of spoofs on it, but it quickly became pretty big. I saw some young lady who had a cover of the song, and she's probably got some attention to her singing voice and her presence, and major record people and other musicians were commenting on it. So it was pretty incredible. I think that the brands that have recognized that that life is a little different and challenging, the ones that were first up to do that, I think that in the toy world actually did very well because of the education aspects. So those that are there to provide a service without capitalizing on it, but to say, we're here, and maybe even not making as much money as they normally would have, to say, we're here to help you because you're at a tough time. I thought it was really impressive that phone companies gave free extra time, that car manufacturers came out and said, we'll deliver the car to you. We're going to give you the lowest prices we've ever had. We're going to lock in these kind of things. The people who looked around and said, let's do something meaningful to people, I think those are the brands that had the right message. I think in the beginning, the people who were making sacrifices for the frontline workers, they mattered. The ones doing it now, actually, I think it smells a little bit. I think they're kind of just trying to capitalize on it. So I do think I do think there's some brands that are out there, and I do by nature notice things like, oh, that's a good idea they're doing, or man, why would they do that? You know, and the Netflixes of the world. I think Netflix has been a big behemoth that I think is a little late to the game of showing a little bit of caring to their audience. And they now have competitors, and the competitors are becoming stronger.
Yeah.
And I think Netflix, because they just cashed in on this, I think that might bite them a little bit. I think Netflix might have peaked for a while at least. So we'll see. I think people, especially in the younger generation, expects companies to understand that they take humane behavior as normal behavior, that diversity isn't an option, and you don't get pats on the back for having a diverse workforce. Well, you don't get pat on the back because you're fair to women. That's the way it is. I mean, don't be taking bows for that, because you look stupid doing that. That's in the eyes of the Z-Gen, and companies that aren't able to see that are going to trip over themselves and be laughed at. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I guess since I am 20 and I'm younger, I definitely look at it as that's just expected. If you're not doing it, then you're late to the game.
Yeah, if you have to say, wow, we're doing this now, you're kind of like saying, you know, so like, yeah, don't be taking bows for the fact that you were a jerk for 20 years. So.
That's great. Does anybody else have any questions that's here? If not, we can end there for the night. It's 8:17, but it was a fantastic discussion. Again, Bruce, you were great. Thank you for all of your
Thank you.
Thank you.
And anybody, feel free to send me an email, and I will get back to you and be happy to answer any questions or have a conversation with you.
Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.
Okay. Bye.